If you like this video, then subscribe to Mountaintop 9 for more metal and horror related content.
Hey guys, it's me again, Eric from Mountaintop 9, and tonight, once again, in association with the Downfall Network, I want to bring you another stunning retrospective, and this time it's on the legendary Danzig. Now, we all know Glenn Danzig from his time in the Misfits, the famous horror punk band, and then if you haven't checked out Sam Hain, his second band, from 1984 to 1986, they put out 3 awesome albums, Initium, Unholy Passion, and November Coming Fire. And personally, I think November Coming Fire is one of Glenn Danzig's greatest works. It's literally a masterpiece. You've got to check it out. Before any of you smartasses out there start going, it's pronounced Samhain. I already know how it's pronounced, okay? I already know about the proper pronunciation. But even Glenn Danzig himself says Sam Hain when he's talking in shorthand to people.
Sam Hain.
We all know how you say it, but when you're talking in shorthand, it's the polite thing to just say Sam Hain, so people know what the f you're talking about, okay? Now, in 1986, at the very end of the November Coming Fire tour, Rick Rubin, the producer from Def Jam Records, he came down to a Sam Hain show, and he started talking to Glenn. His idea was to have Glenn be the front man for a heavy metal supergroup. Now that idea didn't come to fruition, but Rick Rubin did sign Danzig, and he brought along Eerie Von, the bassist from Sam Hain, and in 1987 he added the other 2 original members of the Danzig band, and they were Chuck Biscuits on drums and John Christ on guitar. And the first recording that Danzig ever did for Def Jam was the song You and Me, Less Than Zero. It is a stunning vocal powerhouse of a performance. It's on the Less Than Zero soundtrack. When he had all of his vocal chops running at full steam ahead, man, it was something to behold because it was such a powerful, deep voice, but he also had this great primal scream. Let's get on to the first album though, shall we?
Does this now give you a lot more opportunity to concentrate on writing and singing?
Yeah.
In this concept?
Yeah, I don't have to worry about doing all the other stuff, like in the studio or playing guitar or any of that stuff. I have a real band.
As the Danzig band would go along, the productions would add a little bit more reverb, the sound would become more bombastic, it would add more texture and become thicker. But here on this first album, Rick Rubin wanted the sound just stripped down to its bare elements, and the production sound is very dry. I mean, it's goddamn brittle in my opinion. And from everything I've read, that's all because Rick Rubin wanted this AC/DC-like sound. Very, very ultra simplistic. And you know what? There are good points and bad points to that. As I've already said, the bad points are you don't have like thick texture, you don't have as much atmosphere. But I'll tell you what, Glenn Danzig, his vocal prowess on this album is absolutely mesmerizing. He is howling his ass off from the opening cut, Twist of Cain, all the way till Evil Thing at the end. This album does rock, and it rocks hard. The opener, Twist of Cain, it's a concert staple to this very day. It has an ultra memorable riff with a sinister edge to it. Danzig said in interviews, you know, Cain in the Bible, in the Old Testament, he was the one who committed the first murder. He killed his brother Abel. Well, this song talks about the idea that Adam was not really Cain's father. It was actually Lucifer. You can see why it's played at every concert. When you have a riff like that and you have a catchy chorus, you can't go wrong with it. I really love the song on here, Possession. And a notable thing about the chorus to this song, do you notice that familiar voice during the parts where it's talking about riding you hard? Notice that familiar voice? Well, that is James Hetfield in the background. He's doing background vocals on this song, and he also did background vocals for Twist of Cain. Possession is a song that actually started out as a Sam Hain track. Twist of Cain, Mother, and Possession all started out as Sam Hain songs, and that's something that I want to talk about real quick, where Rick Rubin's influence really came into focus. Glenn Danzig, of course, is famous for being the sole songwriter in all the groups that he's in. But when he would come down with songs on this debut album, Rick Rubin, according to John Christ, really restructured things and had a big influence on the arrangements. It just had a faster, more punky kind of approach. Whereas on this album, of course, it just has a nice bluesy, hard rock feel to it. And Rick Rubin was a big part of getting that sound and style from the band during this time. And then top to bottom, this album's just strong, one track after another. But I'll tell you what, one song on here that I think is very overplayed, one that I'm really tired of, is She Rides. I've seen this song in so many Danzig concerts that I've attended, and I remember Danzig being on stage at one show and relating this story to the crowd, but before the show, a fan came up to him and, he said, "I have one request." And he said, "Could you please play She Rides tonight?" And so we're going to do that song for him right now. I remember Danzig saying that, and I remember thinking to myself, why would you go up to Danzig before a show and request She Rides? You might as well have went up to him and said, "Glenn, I'll tell you what, man. You know what I'm really wanting to hear tonight? I'm really wanting to hear Mother." Now that's a deep cut, but I'll tell you what, Am I Demon? I never get tired of that song. The riff, the way it propels the song down a bloody road, you can't ever grow bored of this one. And the lyrics are just so eerie and they're so evil, pounding out deserved pain to anyone in need. How can you not like that? How can any metal fan, how can anyone into aggressive music not like a song like Am I Demon? Danzig wears this mask in that video. It's this goat mask, and it actually came from a movie called The Devil Rides Out. It's a Hammer horror film. And this is where I must point out, when this album came out in 1988, that was a time when the religious groups were really coming down on heavy metal music. So when you imagine this time period and you had someone like Glenn Danzig just decorating his band with all kinds of religious iconography, he's up on a cross in this video, he's wearing a goat head. This stuff is confrontational, and his lyrics, you can tell they're coming from someone who's done some reading, done some research into things. They seem to be coming from a place of understanding of the occult. And then when you couple that with all the imagery with the crosses, it's no wonder that MTV did not want to play Danzig videos back then. There was just too much pressure. But you gotta give credit to Glenn for sticking to his guns and making this album as confrontational and as sinister as he wanted it to be, because in that sense, it still stands the test of time, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the production on here. So you get past Am I Demon, and of course, what song do we get to next? Mother. This is the song that everyone knows. To this day, Danzig is known for Mother. He's known for two things in the mainstream. He's known for the Misfits, who are just colossally huge now. Everyone knows the goddamn Misfits. And everyone knows the song Mother. I can't tell you how many times since 1993, my friends, that I've heard this song on the radio. I've heard this song in bars, in restaurants, everywhere. And the really interesting thing is that as good as this song is, as catchy as it is, it didn't gain any traction back in 1988. It would only blow up in 1993 when they did the music video for the song, where they took live performance footage from Irvine Meadows and added in some crowd noise, and that is how the song became famous, was in large part to that music video. Musically, Mother is pretty much a masterpiece. You can see why it became a good hit. It has an instantly recognizable riff, and you've got Glenn just belting out those blistering vocal lines, saying stuff like, "Not about to see your light, but if you want to find hell with me." This song is the ultimate rebellion song. This song is all about defiance and loss of innocence. And funny enough, the inspiration for it came from what was going on at the time with the Parents Music Resource Center, all that stuff, wanting to put stickers on albums. And then of course you had bands like Judas Priest and Ozzy Osbourne getting dragged into court with really dumb lawsuits where people were alleging that their lyrics drove someone they knew to suicide. Still a great song, no matter how many times you hear it. It is a great, powerful song.
Yeah, Mother was censored like 3 times.
Against my wishes. I think the combination of our lyrics and music and like the erotically aggressive visuals, it's just like paints too foreboding a picture for network execs, you know. They think music videos should be safe and unassuming, like, you know, entertainingly bland. We feel it should be, you know, very intense.
So all in all, the debut album, it is a nice jumping off point, but that's all it is. It's a jumping off point. The band would scale much greater heights on further albums as the band progressed.
Have you come under fire from any religious groups or organizations?
Well, I haven't really got that much flack yet, but I mean, if they want to fight, it's about me. I probably know more about organized religion than they do. Probably know more about their histories and what they really should be all about than they do. So, if you want to fight, come on.
Lucifuge to a lot of people is just the absolute pinnacle. Now, I'm not sure about that, and we'll get to that as we go further along, but I'll tell you what, it's right there at the top. Lucifuge takes, you know, the sound that they kind of had going on the first album, but it emboldens it. It fills it with bombastic presence. The band had become so much tighter. They had toured together. They had rehearsed together so much. And at this point, they were a razor-sharp unit. And Long Way Back from Hell, it makes its impression right off the bat. It's just tear your head off kind of energy, man. Long Way Back from Hell, this is the type of track that Danzig should play every set list. There's so much memorable stuff. You've got Snakes of Christ with a sinister Twist of Cain type riff. John Christ went to great lengths to get just the perfect guitar tone on these albums that he played on. He really did. And on Lucifuge, it just sounds so damn rich. You just want to lap it up like icing off a cinnamon roll. People like to talk about Long Way Back from Hell, Snakes of Christ, Her Black Wings, Tired of Being Alive. All great songs, alright? But people forget about Girl. Everyone knows right now that Glenn Danzig vocally, a lot of his influences come from people like Elvis Presley, of course, and Howlin' Wolf, and Willie Dixon, Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers, even Ozzy. But right here and now, on a song like Girl, this song really just screams Jim Morrison, which is another influence on Danzig. The thing that makes Girl such a great song, though, it isn't even the vocals. As awesome as they are, the thing that makes Girl such a great, memorable, underrated track are the guitar riffs, the guitar playing from John Christ. Man, is that guitar good. I want to take that riff, I want to chop it up, alright, and I want to do lines of that fucking riff. You've got Her Black Wings, which has a famous music video. That's a great tune, and funny enough, the main riff to it is very reminiscent of Zero the Hero, the Black Sabbath song from Born Again. But anyway, Her Black Wings, it stands on its own as a great song, but it's a track like Devil's Plaything. Man, when the whole band comes in, when the distortion kicks into the max, this song slaps your ass around and it takes no prisoners. It's got great hooks and it's filled with emotion. As the song goes on, you start to get these really great yells from Danzig and the high notes that he hits. It's just sheer, raw passion. Can you imagine if Devil's Plaything had been on the debut album? It would have been utterly neutered. It would have had its balls sliced off, okay? It wouldn't have had any of the bombast. It wouldn't have had any of the pomp and circumstance that is on this rendition. Lucifuge would be an easy first recommendation. It really would. It's a great place for someone to start off. If they're new to Danzig, you want to hand them this album, okay? You don't want to hand them something like Circle of Snakes, for instance. Or Danzig 5, Blackacidevil. That's not a good place to start. Start out with something like Lucifuge. That is the perfect jumping off point.
You must know that a lot of interviewers, when they're about to do an interview with you, get a little bit nervous.
Good.
Good? That makes you feel good?
Well, it makes me feel like I'm not just this, you know, pasted together corporate rock moron that they just send on an interview show, and these guys are gonna just, you know, ask them stupid questions like, so how are your fans, and gee, isn't it great, you know, going out on the road and blah, blah, you know, and it just becomes this mindless crap. I do what I like to do. When I write a song, I sit back, and before I put those words down, I say to myself, I know a lot of other people don't, but I say to myself, okay, yeah, that's me. When I tell somebody I'll bust their head open if they screw with me, I'm not lying. One thing good about the record entered into Billboard at 24, and what it did was it sent a message to all these people that just think music like what we do is a fluke, and that, you know, it shouldn't get airplay here or there, and that it's just a flash, it's not going away, it's staying, and, you know, we have more fans now than we ever had, and basically without any kind of airplay on MTV or radio.
I think that How the Gods Kill, it has a more rigid, monolithic sound. It's darker, a bit more gothic and doomy, and on this album, Rick Rubin had much less to do with it. Even though he gets a producer credit, a co-producer credit, it was much more Glenn Danzig's vision on this album. He was much more in control, and Rick Rubin wasn't there as much. The album starts off with the track Godless, which is a very dynamic song because it has quieter moments, alright, where the music basically comes to a halt and Danzig is just belting out these werewolf style vocals, man. His voice, it just sounds like he is metamorphosizing. And the song lyrically, it's singing about, you know, feeling oppressed, feeling like people are trying to take control of your life, and of course Danzig is so great about singing about being defiant to that, you know, about standing your ground, having strength and resilience, and that's the whole feel you get from this song when he says stuff like, just spread your tentacles of hate around my life, I've taken more than you could ever give. It's got the fast sections as well, and that's why I say it's so damn dynamic. But it's the next track, Anything, which has really made its mark on me from the very first time I heard it. Just those clean notes at the beginning. They're so atmospheric as you feel the sound swell in the background, and he's crooning out those words, anything you want, anything the world has to offer. And then when John Christ busts into that guitar solo, it is hands down the most memorable, the best, the greatest guitar lead ever played in a Danzig track is in Anything. It perfectly complements the words that Glenn Danzig was just crooning into the microphone. Amazing track, one of my favorites on How the Gods Kill. Got the title song, of course, How the Gods Kill. Great crooning singing with some nice wilting high notes from Glenn in the intro over the clean guitar. And then it's one of those dynamic type of songs. It shifts back and forth. You go from the quieter sections into the heavy, distorted stuff. Dirty Black Summer. Great riff. Very memorable. My favorite part in this track, though, is when he says, we'll keep you warm like a funeral pyre. First of all, on the surface level, I love that. Anytime someone mentions a funeral pyre, I just think that is just such evocative use of imagery. When he says that line, we'll keep you warm like a funeral pyre, for some reason my f***ed up mind twists those words into, we'll keep you warm like a fruit roll pie. We'll keep you warm like a fruit roll pie. It probably comes from the fact that I like to buy those Hostess pies, you know, those glazed things filled with apples and cinnamon and sugar. I love that shit, man. This is another song from the original Danzig lineup, which would become an all-time classic. Just, you know, it's up to the heights of stuff like Twist of Cain, Mother, Snakes of Christ, Her Black Wings. Well, then you have a song like Dirty Black Summer on here, which is just an instantaneous kind of fan favorite.
Yeah, my dirty black summer. Yeah, give me black summer.
My favorite track on How the Gods Kill has got to be Heart of the Devil. Now this is Danzig at his most powerful. This is Danzig talking about how he can make a sky black in his wake and how he can make a girl so eager to please. So check out How the Gods Kill at once. If you've never heard it, you're missing out on classic Danzig material. In 1993, the band put out the EP Thrall, Demon, Sweat Live, and this is when the band hit the big time because Mother became a huge hit. Like I said earlier in this video, it was being played on MTV round the clock. One track I would recommend on this album is The Violet Fire. I really like the atmosphere of The Violet Fire. That's what makes it stand out for me. It's kind of got a Sam Hain kind of feel to it, you know? That forbidden, occult Sam Hain kind of feeling really shines through on The Violet Fire. But anyway, guys, let's move along to the next full-length studio album. It is the masterpiece, Danzig 4, or Danzig 4P, whichever one you prefer. I just refer to it as Danzig 4.
The Thrall Demon Sweat Live, the 4 live songs were recorded at Irvine Meadows last year, or 2 years ago on the How the Gods Kill tour. We played in front of 13,000 plus people. And a lot of the bands that do get airplay and were the big bands at the time couldn't sell that place out. We oversold that place. That was kind of a big middle finger to everybody. You get some band who just wrote, Satan, Satan, kill, kill, murder, murder, okay? Sure, you know, a kid is gonna love that, okay? But, you know, is there anything there? No, there's nothing there. So what I'd rather do is scratch the surface and delve into it, you know, and, you know, let people decide for themselves.
If I had to just pick one album where I feel like all the stars aligned and the band just went to new heights of greatness, well, this is the album for me. It's still heavy. It's still that original Danzig band, so everything is tight and everything is focused, but at the same time, this album goes off in many different directions. There's a lot of added emotion because of all the layered texture. And the lyrics on here, Danzig really wrote some great words for this album. And I like how each song is its own individual piece. I like how different things are. You have a song like Brand New God, which is just pummel you right in the face until you're black and blue. But then you'll have a track that comes right after it like Little Whip, which is more laid back and it's more erotic. You know that little dog movie about the little dog, Benji? He's a really cute little fluffy dog, alright? I used to watch that movie all the time when I was a kid. Well, anyway, there's a song in the movie Benji where it kind of reminds me, has a similar kind of melody to that part in Little Whip. So whenever I hear that part in Little Whip, when John Christ's guitar kind of picks up and gets that kind of country feeling to it, it reminds me of the movie Benji. Another standout classic on here is Until You Call on the Dark. And I can tell you right now, my friends, when this album came out, Until You Call on the Dark, this is the one that I remember my local radio station, my local hard rock radio station, this is the one they would play. If you could take evil, if it was something that was a physical thing that you could capture in a jar and then transfer it into musical form, that's what Until You Call in the Dark would be. That's what that riff is. And when you have Glenn delivering ominous words like "I want to be your misery" over top of that type of music, man, it holds nothing back. This is gut-wrenching stuff.
Until you go on the dark. Until you go on the dark.
I Don't Mind the Pain, Stalker Song, and Let It Be Captured. Those songs form the perfect trilogy to end a Danzig album. You just can't get any better than that. I Don't Mind the Pain has this just otherworldly atmosphere to it, and I love the lines when Danzig says, "And I stay so arcane in the shadows of your brain," because to me, those lines, they sum up Danzig 4. Danzig 4 really has that weird, uneasy, occult Sam Hain type of feeling. You know, that feeling where it's like a forbidden thing that you're going into. But for my money, the track that best encapsulates the wickedness of Danzig 4, the track that best captures that feeling is Stalker Song. This song is coming from the viewpoint of someone that is stalking someone. They are after someone, and this person is their only focus, and they're basically saying in the track, "I can slip right in whenever I want you." And the way Danzig delivers the lines, what a performance, because he's taking on this role of a truly, villainous persona. He's saying stuff like, "I'm coming in your home," and "I'm coming in your hole." These lyrics, I remember the first time I read that, I was like, holy shit. When you have music like this, that is so rich and so full of texture and so full of magical atmosphere, you need to make sure that you deliver an utterly commanding vocal performance, and that's what Glenn does on this album. It is absolutely scorched earth. The album closes out with a great ballad called Let It Be Captured. Very soft, very soothing. Danzig singing out some very emotional lines. The song doesn't close out the album in a real aggressive way, but it carries the album out on a very emotional note. By the end of this album, you've had such a nice balance of darkness and aggression, plus experimenting with softer textures. Hell, there's even a song on here like Can't Speak. The music in Can't Speak is actually directly from Let It Be Captured. It's stuff from Let It Be Captured being played in reverse. And that song had a music video as well that got played on Beavis and Butthead. So if people were watching Beavis and Butthead and they saw your band, that's more eyeballs on your band, that's increased record sales.
You want black eyes like that? Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Okay.
Can't speak, can't talk, can't do anything they want, can't hide or change your mind.
People nowadays, they refer to Danzig 1 through 4, they refer to that as the classic Danzig era, as the classic Danzig lineup, and it's easy to see why. Chuck Biscuits, Eerie Von, and John Christ, along with Danzig, it was just magic. It was like peanut butter and jelly. I really wish that Danzig had held on to the lineup he had. At the very least, hold on to John Christ on the guitar, because I feel like he was a good companion to him. His influences were very much traditional hard rock and metal, whereas Danzig came at things musically from a more punk aesthetic. You know what I mean? From a more raw, noisy, kind of chaotic type feel. So he would always want John Christ to push his guitar playing to the limits and make it a little rougher around the edges. They churned out some great music together. I think they both fed off of each other in a good way. So it's really sad that John Christ couldn't stay with the lineup, because I feel like Glenn could have kept experimenting. He could have done more industrial aspects, done all the same stuff that he went on to do, but sadly it wasn't to last. And after Danzig 4, first Chuck Biscuits left the band, and then after that, both Eerie Von and John Christ were out of the band soon after that.
Originally, the lineup of Danzig was never supposed to last that long with those members. And I think it lasted too long with those members.
I don't think that when the band changes, it should stay the same name. It becomes a different band.
And some of the ideas I wanted to use and go with, darker, harder stuff. people like Biscuits and Erie and John just didn't want to get that. John wanted to go more old school, kind of like egoed out Yngwie stuff, and I hate that shit. Okay, and I wanted a crunchier, heavier guitar sound, and John eventually started saying, well, I want to do this like pop rock sound. No, I'm not into that.
The first 4 albums that Danzig put out were released by American Recordings. But after that album came out, Danzig had a falling out with Rick Rubin. And Danzig ended up severing ties with that label. And for Blackacidevil, that one was put out through Hollywood Records. Now, the funny thing about that, though, is that when Disney found out that they had this satanic artist recording for them, they ended up pulling support, and this was the only Danzig album to come out on Hollywood Records.
We were assured going in that none of that was going to happen. Disney wasn't, had no say-so over Hollywood Records, and I was going to get my own label, so all the Sam Haines stuff and Black Aria and everything else, Danzig, they were going to make a home for me there, and it was all lies. So what happened was, of course, Roy Disney does have full control of Hollywood Records. And then, so what happened is that 3 weeks in, we had the plug pulled, and we got a fight, and then finally we got off.
When Blackacidevil hit, people were stunned, because you gotta understand, he had put out 4 straight albums, 4 straight full-length albums of very bluesy, traditional, hard rock, metal. But when you got to Blackacidevil, Glenn went full industrial mode. When you hear Seventh House come crushing out of your stereo speakers for the first time, it just sounds like ultra dissonant noise. I mean, it just overtakes you. There is no discernible melody the first time you hear it. And Danzig is just screaming out vocals that are distorted. He's churning out lines like, girl, I'm gonna make you come, free your body with my gun. And, it's very aggressive and in your face and everything, but at the same time, if you were used to the Danzig band of old, this stuff made your head spin. You just couldn't believe it. But I got used to it, and I learned to, take great joy in certain aspects of this album. Now, the biggest complaint from me, personally, is the fact that his voice is obscured on many, many songs. They are so heavily treated with effects that it kind of robs the song of the soul that it would have. Strip away a little bit of those effects, okay, so that we can hear a little bit more of the humanity that lies beneath. On a song like Sacrifice, man, I'll tell you what, anyone who hears that song, and if you don't think of 9 Inch Nails, come on, you're deluding yourself. And then as well as that part where he goes under the downward side, okay, under the downward side, the downward spiral.
Under the downward side, I was a dick you begged to hold. Now you have a thing you want.
And one notable thing I want to point out right now is that Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains, he did lead guitar on 3 songs for this album, okay? He performed on See All You Were, Come to Silver, and on the Hand of Doom cover. And we should talk about that Hand of Doom cover right now. First of all, it sounds so radically different from the Black Sabbath track, it's not even funny. Glenn totally changes the words. In this version of Hand of Doom, he's singing some sick, twisted song about a guy carving up a dead body and possibly committing necrophilia. You gotta listen closely to the lyrics to this, but they are so twisted, it's not even funny, my friends. Definitely check out his cover of Hand of Doom because it's the weirdest Black Sabbath cover you'll ever hear. I mean, he totally takes a song and changes it into something else. I mean, quite frankly, I don't even know if it should be called Hand of Doom. He maybe should have just changed the whole damn title. There are a couple songs on this album where I feel like Glenn's voice comes through loud and clear, and there are minimal effects, minimal or no effects. And those tracks are Hint of Her Blood and Ashes. And the really heartbreaking thing about this song, Ashes, when you think about it, as this song comes to a close, you realize now with hindsight that this track was really the closing moments, the closing studio recorded moments of Glenn's voice in its most purest form. All of the years of screaming, doing all those primal yells, delivering awesome performance after awesome performance both on the road and in the studio. All of those years of wear and tear finally caught up. When you get to the next album, Danzig 6, you can tell a big difference in the way he approaches songs vocally. So it's kind of bittersweet as you listen to the closing moments of Ashes.
Will you keep me cold and darkened till the end of time? I will keep you safe from some.
When Chuck Biscuits left after Danzig 4, Joey Castillo came in and replaced him on drums, and he helped out on Danzig 5. There were some other people behind the scenes helping Glenn, but this was basically his show on this album, the full-on industrial thing. And as it stands, I like Blackacidevil. Is it one of my favorites? No. But would I say it's a quality album? Yes, I would. You definitely don't want to start with Blackacidevil, but it is one after you get really ingratiated and get really immersed into the Danzig discography. Put Blackacidevil on, see what you think about it. It's a very polarizing album. People love it, people hate it, and then there's people right in the middle who just kind of like it. I kind of like it.
Do you feel that this album is heavier than 5? I know it has more guitars that are in your face, and the industrial seems a little bit more subtle than the last one.
I don't know, because I thought some of the beats on the last record were just like bone crushing. So maybe it's heavier in a different way. It's definitely more guitar oriented. We wanted more guitar because the guitar got buried on the last record. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure the guitar was really in your face on this one.
I still remember when this album came out because it came out in November. It was the perfect time of year for a Danzig release. I bought this album a few days before I saw Danzig not only perform his solo set, but opening up that night, he did a set with Sam Hain, which was amazing. I will never forget that experience. After that show, I met him at the bus. There was a huge line of people to meet him, and he signed a flyer for me. Steve Zing and Todd Youth also signed that flyer. A couple years later, I did finally get a picture with Glenn Danzig, but it didn't turn out to be the best picture because I jumped in at the last minute. I didn't even get to stand right next to him, so that's kind of disappointing, but hey, at least I got a picture with him. For the lineup on this album, he had Joey Castillo on drums, he had Josh Lazy on bass, and he had a session guitar player named Jeff Chambers helping out on the guitars. Now, the funny thing about this album when it came out is I remember all of the music press, all the music magazines, they were saying how this was Danzig's return to form. But if you listen to Satan's Child, you will see that it's not like a return to what he was doing before. The industrial elements are still very much present in a lot of these songs. They still have that feel and the drumming. There's a lot of programming going on beneath the surface. Yes, this album has more overt heavy guitar going on. Yes, the riffs hit you front and center. And, of course, his vocals are a lot more present on here. An album like Blackacidevil just went full on into industrial territory. Satan's Child scales that back a little bit, but still leaves a nice portion of it. This was where we first heard the hoarse, raspy voice from Glenn. And it was kind of shocking at the time when you first listened to it, but you know what? I think that Glenn does a good job overall on this album despite that. He does some different vocal approaches on here. There's a lot of like stuff where he's more or less speaking or doing some sinister whisper type approach, like on Five Finger Crawl. He's going from doing some whispering type stuff, but then he's clobbering you over the head with some really loud, compelling yells. I'll tell you right now, if you want to hear a great kick-ass song on this album that is vastly overlooked, look no further than the song Cult, Without a Name. This song is moody and it has a very compelling aura to it, and I love how it goes from these quiet sections with this wicked sounding bass to suddenly just coming in with some great distorted riffing, and the riffing in this is just so damn heavy. The dynamics of the song, the way it shifts between the quiet sections and the heavy clobbering parts, it's great stuff, man. Cult Without a Name, I love the lyrics. Glenn's vocals just slam you over the head repeatedly. This song puts you into a state of utter submission. Then you got a song like the title track, Satan's Child. Pure rebellion, pure Danzig. The lyrics, turn up, turn loose, turn out the dead. He's saying stuff like, check my ID, see who I am, 666 is my name. That is Danzig living up to the evil label as only he can, and it's a heavy bruiser of a song. Just like Danzig 4 had a lot of moody elements, so does Danzig 6. Listen to a song like Lilin. Lilin has a great chorus. Even though it's got that raspy quality and everything else, he puts a lot of passion and emotion into the way he delivers the chorus to Lilin. Now, one very notable song on Danzig 6 is the track 13. This track is famous because it was originally written for Johnny Cash. You know, Danzig, through his connection with Rick Rubin, he got to work with Roy Orbison. He wrote a song with Roy back in 1987 called Life Fades Away. Well, in 1993, Danzig got a phone call and, you know, he was asked, do you want to write a song for Johnny Cash? Well, Danzig leapt at the opportunity, and, you know, he got to go down to Johnny Cash's farm and show him the song, and it was featured on a Johnny Cash album.
I walked into Rick Rubin's living room to record one night, and there sat a guy, and he said, John, this is Glenn. Glenn, this is John.
Somebody from Rick's office called me and asked me if I knew who Johnny Cash was. I said, yeah, I know who Johnny Cash is. And they said, would you write a song for him? And I said, yeah, I'll write a song for him. And I wrote it like in a half hour because it was just my impression of who Johnny Cash was or what he meant. And that's when I wrote 13.
Got the number 13 tattooed on my neck. When the ink starts to itch, then the black will turn to red.
Well, when the time arrived to record Danzig 6, you know, Glenn decided that he wanted to feature the song on one of his own albums. And the version that we hear here on Satan's Child, it's quite different than the Johnny Cash version. The Johnny Cash version is pretty dry, doesn't really have a whole lot of atmosphere. I think that the Danzig version is much more atmospheric. You have some swirling type sounds going on, and it's a little bit more immersive. But anyway, the really cool thing is that Glenn got to go down to Johnny Cash's farm, and I always like to imagine that when Glenn went down there to show Johnny the song, I like to imagine that he went out and milked some of the cows and got to see some of the little pigs, some of the damn hogs down there on that farm. And then when they were done milking the cows and trimming the hair on the sheepies, they go inside, you know, and have a nice big plate of biscuits and gravy, all the damn fixins. There ain't anything better than biscuits and gravy, my friends. You get a nice biscuit and split it in half. Smear the gravy all over the fucking biscuit. And then you get it in a nice baste and you shove it right in your face. That is good eating, and that's how we eat when we're down on the farm. When you get nice buckets of milk right out of a fucking cow and then take it to the pasteurizing plant and drink that shit, that's good fucking protein right there, my friends. That's how Glenn built all of his muscles, by drinking lots of good milk. And if a damn hog gets in your way, you tell those hogs, say, get the fuck out of my way, you stupid little hog. Get out of my fucking way. I got a lot of farming to do today.
I was born to bring trouble wherever I'm at.
On Blackacidevil, I think a lot of the songs are just too, you know, it sounds funny coming from me because I personally like a lot of extreme sounding music, but there are quite a few moments on Blackacidevil that are just pure, chaotic, almost like noise. It's devoid of melody. The thing that people gravitate towards with Danzig is his voice, first and foremost. You need to hear his voice because that's the driving, compelling force to any Danzig album. That's what we came to the show for. We came to hear Danzig's voice. And I feel like Satan's Child gets the balance just right. It gives you the heavy driving guitars, it uncovers his voice more, and you still get some industrial elements to spice up the whole damn mix.
This is just very heavy. A lot of tuned down guitars, really just kind of like my answer to all the rap metal crap that's out there, you know, or like frat metal guys stealing heavy music and trying to make it into like some kind of frat rock, and that ain't gonna happen. Not while I'm around.
In 2002, Danzig would release the album Danzig 7, 7-7, E Luciferi. Now for the lineup on this album, Danzig had Todd Youth on guitar, Joey Castillo returning to the drums once again, and he had Howie Pyro doing the bass. Todd Youth gets it just right. It's a heavy tone, but it still sounds good. It's pleasing to the ears, and it makes you well up with aggression and energy. Sadly, I do have to note that Todd Youth actually died not too long ago, so that was sad news to hear that he passed away, because I think Todd Youth was a really good guitar player, and I really like what he brought to the table. The guitar tone on this album is like a blunt instrument bashing in your fucking cranium. That's how heavy this album is. In fact, I will go on record as saying Danzig 7 is the heaviest Danzig album of them all. But the vocals are kind of pulled back almost like they're just another instrument, but they're not at the forefront. So we can only speculate as to why he did that, but I think it's just maybe because he didn't like the way they sounded when they were turned up. But anyway, that's the way it is. That's the level that he wanted his vocals on the album. And to me, this is still a really solid effort from Danzig. Before I went and got it at the store, they had released online, you know, Wicked Pussycat for people to hear. And when I listened to that song, my jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe the new metal flavorings of it. I couldn't believe the way Glenn was delivering the vocals. I'll tell you what right now, when he gets to that section in the song, when he's saying, I like you lots now, I like you better, it sounds like he should be in a Limp Bizkit or Korn type get up. I don't know why Glenn wrote that fucking song. I'll never understand it. Honestly, as long as I fucking live, I'll never like Wicked Pussycat.
I like you lots now, I like you better. Walking your geckos and leeches and leather. I watch you curl up into a circle all the time.
The whole rest of the damn album is a fine piece of work. Also on E Luciferi is a song called Dead Inside, and I'll tell you, it's one of the most mournful, depressing Danzig songs ever recorded. When they played Dead Inside, I liked it when Danzig got to the part where he says, and how does it feel when you're black inside? He grabbed a hold of his necklace at that part. I like the way he grabbed it and he kind of like waved it at the audience when he said, how does it feel when you're black inside? Without light, I am. This song is doomy to the max. And I love how as this song develops, as it goes along, you know, it goes from being slow and doomy to having this total twist ending. There's a section at the end of this song that just blindsides you. Man, does this album have some bruising songs. Black Mass, the main riff to this song, is so damn memorable. Glenn really broke the mold when he came up with this one. What a perfect Danzig riff.
If you call my name, it's but one of many by which I know the bow will swung.
Now, in 2004, Danzig would release his 8th album, Circle of Snakes. And this one, he dropped the whole putting a number, you know, before the album title. He dropped that whole thing. It had run its course. I personally think he just wanted to end it with the 777 thing, okay? Because, hell, you go back to Lucifuge and he's got the track 777. So I think it was just too good an opportunity to pass up. Just like calling Danzig 6 6-6, it's the same thing. Why not call Danzig 7 777? It just made sense. And after that album, he dropped that whole approach and just went with calling the album just an album title.
No one has the right to take my life or take something away from me. Who gave them that right? Just the fact that they would think that they have that right means they die. They die. Straight up.
The album lineup on this one was a whole brand new lineup. He had Jerry Montano on bass, he had Bev Davies on drums, and this was the introduction on a studio album of Tommy Victor. Now, Tommy Victor had played with Danzig before during the whole Blackacidevil era. You know, he had done live shows with Danzig, stuff like that. And I must tell you right now that I am in the camp that does not, and I repeat, does not like his guitar tone. To me, his guitar tone is very grating to my ears. His solos gangbang my fucking ears into utter oblivion, and it's just kind of unappealing. Now, Tommy Victor, I have nothing against him, so you're gonna hear me say some more things like that as we move along through the rest of this video, because Danzig has stuck with Tommy Victor from Circle of Snakes all the way up until now. Anytime, you know, Danzig puts out an album, it has Tommy Victor on the guitar, so that's something, as a Danzig fan, if you don't like his tone, you've just had to learn to get along with. Also on this album, Danzig once again kind of had more of a subdued vocal approach. His voice isn't slamming you right smack between the eyes. Instead, it's kind of in with the mix, and he sounds kind of hoarse, and it's just kind of pulled back and kind of hidden. At this point, he was still doing full tours. He was still playing a ton of shows. So I don't believe his vocals were getting the proper rest. So that would explain why he just sounds like this so much during this era. But anyway, let's get to a few standout cuts on Circle of Snakes so you know what some of the strong moments are. Skin Carver, the opener, it is a good track. It's got a memorable riff to it. Now, it has a pinch harmonic played by Tommy Victor, which to me is a bad equation. It gives me a headache and it makes my eyes bleed, and I want to go lay down and take a nap to recuperate after hearing it. And, you know, that's the funny thing. Danzig has always had pinch harmonics. You know, John Christ played them. There were pinch harmonics, you know, on Danzig 7. So that's something that's always been an element in the Danzig sound. But it's when Tommy Victor plays them, I'm just not a fan of the sound. It grates at me so damn bad. It's like worse than nails on a chalkboard. But getting past that, the riff is a good riff, funny enough. It's the kind of riff that you remember, and it makes sense that Danzig would use this as a live opener. Danzig is singing from the viewpoint of some kind of lunatic, some kind of deranged guy that's wanting to cut people's faces off, just take the skin right off their damn face. The next song, Circle of Snakes, the title cut, very memorable. Danzig is one of those performers. One of the things that he is known for is he likes to get down right in front of the audience, and he likes to sing with the audience, sing with the fans, put that microphone right down so they can belt out the lines as well. And a song like Circle of Snakes, it perfectly fits that mold. It's tailored for that kind of setting. Skull Forest is very eerie, really scary sounding, and this whole song was based on a dream that Danzig had where he walked, you know, through this area where there were just skulls and bodies, and they were looking at him, and they were people he knew. Hell Mask is kind of funny because I think Glenn was being really influenced by the type of black metal he was listening to at the time. You know, Glenn was really getting into different black metal bands, and I think he wanted to do a song with really fast double bass drumming and just a really aggressive screaming approach. Circle of Snakes overall, it's not as good as Luciferi, but it's a decent album. Another thing I want to touch on real quick is the Lost Tracks of Danzig, which came out in 2007. It's a really good release. There's some great songs on it, like Pain is Like an Animal, and You Should Be Dying, and Angel of the Seventh Dawn, so it's definitely one to check out. Now, before I move along, the front office here at the Downfall Network has strongly encouraged me, okay? They've given me, you know, kind of some prodding and some advisement that I should at least say something about the incident that happened, you know, back in 2004 where Danzig pushes the guy and then the guy runs back at him and knocks him down. Everything that needs to be said about that incident has already been said. It's not something that is important to Danzig's career. Here is a man that has busted his ass since the late 70s, putting out music for all of us to enjoy, has had a legendary career, and for some stupid reason we are supposed to stop and pontificate about that dumb fucking incident that happened all these years ago, and it's just dumb. Everyone gets knocked down from time to time. If you're going to stand your ground, if you're going to be the type of person that gets into any altercations at all, you're going to get knocked down. So who gives a fuck? I want to move on to more music because that is what really interests me.
When I'm doing a record, I always make sure that I keep in mind who I am and what I'm about and what it is I do. And so it's just second nature. I already know. Right away when I write something, if it's not remotely Danzig, it's outdoor. It doesn't even make it to the studio. So I guess I'm known for writing catchy, heavy songs. And I really wanted this one to even be more like early 70s record with a very contemporary feel though.
Now, when this album first came out, I remember Glenn doing an interview with someone, and the interviewer called the album Deth Red Sabaoth. So for a while, that's what I called the album, but really it's called Deth Red Sabaoth. Now, the thing about this album is that it has a little bit more of a bass presence to it. I like how Glenn took the approach of when he was recording this album, he went back and bought some old amps from like the 70s and shit like that, and he wanted to do the guitar through these old bass amps just to give the album more of a vintage, heavy feel. Now, the lineup on this album once again featured Tommy Victor on the guitar, and on the drums it featured Johnny Kelly of Typo Negative fame. Deth Red Sabaoth goes out on a really high note with a song called Left Hand Rise Above. Just like Without Light I Am, this song speaks volumes about Danzig's spirit, about his overall viewpoint, about how he feels about believing in oneself, about strength, about rising above the odds. Danzig delivers some really beautiful vocal lines on this, and that's one thing I have to say about Deth Red Sabaoth. This album did turn his vocals up a bit in the mix. One track that is very notable on Deth Red Sabaoth is Black Candy, and what's notable about Black Candy is the fact that Glenn Danzig himself does the drums. Now, Danzig has always contributed instruments to his band's recordings, whether it be in the Misfits, Sam Hain, his own band. He's always contributed guitars, he's done bass duties. Like on Human Pony Girl, the closing track to November Coming Fire, that's Danzig doing the drums himself on that track. And here on Black Candy, he does the drums, and you can pretty much tell it's a similar performance in that it's just brutal and straight ahead and pounding, just like what he did on Human Pony Girl all those years earlier. And it's kind of funny because it's a similar song in nature. It's another sex type song, so it makes sense. But one track that really gets overlooked on Deth Red Sabaoth, and I don't know why, because this is a good one. It's called Rebel Spirits. You've got some great pounding work on here from Johnny Kelly. I like the use of double bass, and I like the way the drums hit. Now, the first time I heard Juju Bone, I thought it was a silly track. You know, it has this old-time rock and roll kind of riff to it, and the lyrics are a little bit silly, but I'll tell you what, it's a catchy song, and I like the chorus. And even though it has a really cheesy music video, well, the song itself is cheesy, so the two kind of match, you know what I mean? So Juju Bone overall is another good track on the album. Now, after Deth Red Sabaoth was released, it was many years until another Danzig studio offering would come out, until a Danzig studio offering of original material, that is. Because, of course, we know how in 2015 Danzig put out Skeletons, but it wasn't until 2017 that Danzig released another studio offering of all original material.
You know, I just start recording and writing, and I do it at my own pace, and then when it's ready to come out and I'm happy with what I've done, then I set a release date. It's my label, I can do whatever I want.
I do what I want. I'm Glenn Danzig, and I do what I want.
Hey, you know, I've done it for a long time. I worked really hard to get to this level, and, you know, if I have something to say, I'm going to say it. But if I don't, I'm not going to force it, and I'm not just going to put out an album because the label wants me to put out an album or because haven't had a record out in a while. It's like, It's going to be a terrible album if you do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why sometimes records sound forced, because they are.
They are forced, yeah.
You've got a great songwriter like Glenn Danzig, you know, crafting memorable songs. So even though I don't like the guitar playing and the production ain't the best, you have to admit these are some well-crafted songs. Devil on Highway 9, man, that gets you going. I love that chugging, hard-charging riff. This has got a good energy to it. And his voice is on full display all throughout Black Laden Crown. And even though you hear the raspy quality to it, and you know it isn't the Danzig that you heard back on Danzig 4, it doesn't matter. This is Danzig as he sounds now. It's a weathered voice, it's a matured voice, and you know, it is what it is. I still think it sounds good even today, and these songs just flat out rock. Devil on Highway 9, Eyes Ripping Fire, and Last Ride. Man, is that a good, bluesy, down and dirty Danzig song. I mean, it's got that really kind of old school Danzig feeling, you know what I mean? I love it when he finally busts out in that song and starts saying, I'm lonely. The way he belts out the words, it's totally earth-shaking, man. It's good stuff. It's gritty material. And the chorus is very memorable. You got the great layered vocals. You got good harmony going on. And when Glenn says how he's born to take that ride, it's powerful stuff. So Last Ride, that one grabbed me right away. Pull the Sun is without a doubt one of the greatest Danzig tracks ever written and performed. The emotion, the soul, the pure heart that Danzig puts into every line that he sings, it is something to behold, and it's just a mesmerizing song. Ever since I first heard Pull the Sun, that's another one, just like Last Ride, it's one that grabs you right away. You don't need to let Pull the Sun grow on you. This song grabs you by the balls immediately. It just reminds me of Without Light I Am, and Let It Be Captured, and Left Hand Rise Above, and Ashes. All of these great melancholy album closers. It's so much in that vein, and I just love it. Can't get enough of it. Beautiful vocal work, too. And this is a perfect opportunity to segue into Skeletons and Danzig Sings Elvis real quick. The biggest thing that they have in common is the lo-fi production quality, okay? You can't get around it. The sound of these two albums is just extremely lo-fi, and it just doesn't really sound overtly pleasing to your ears. Now, despite that, Danzig does deliver some really great performances on both of these. On Skeletons, I love that song that comes from the film Satan's Sadist, and the song is called Satan. Another one I really like is Rough Boy. Even though the guitars sound really awful, they literally sound like nuclear bombs going off in the goddamn distance. He gives a very emotional performance. He's doing different runs with his voice, taking it to different levels. So Rough Boy, that's a fun song. It's a ZZ Top cover. I think the NIB cover is utterly, I mean, it's just blasphemous in my opinion. It pisses all over the original, okay? I didn't mind what he did with Hand of Doom, because he took that, he made it into something different, and it sounds kind of twisted and cool and weird. He didn't really take it and change it as much as the song just got butchered. It sounds terrible. The guitars sound terrible, it sounds comical, doing those pinch harmonics during every ending section, and I don't like Danzig's vocal performance on this NIB cover either. You hear Glenn when it sounds like he's giving it his all, you know, on a song like Satan, for instance, or a song like Rough Boy. Man, he's really unleashing the hounds of hell. But here on NIB, it sounds like some guy that's at a karaoke bar, okay? It just doesn't sound good, and it pains me to say that because I'm such a huge Sabbath fan and a huge Danzig fan. And as far as the Elvis album is concerned, you know, that just came out here in 2020, it hasn't even been out that long as of the recording of this video. And I'll tell you what, he does a great job on tracks like Is It So Strange and The Girl of My Best Friend and Always on My Mind. These are very passionate performances, but the sad thing is the production is just, it's shoddy, man. My favorite thing on here is that Girl of My Best Friend cover, okay? And it's towards the end of the album. There's like a clicking noise in the recording that's like playing, and you can tell it shouldn't even be there. You're like, what the hell is that as you're listening to it? One thing I've noticed from people that kind of make excuses for this kind of stuff over the years, you know, as far as more of a raw production, they try to say stuff like, well, this is how Glenn wants it. He wants it as a return to the old days, like the Misfits and Sam Hain, when things were real raw and it was punk and it was old school. That's just how it was, and it's just a return to that. So I say to that, okay, you like how these albums, like Sings Elvis and these other recent albums, you like how they sound so shoddy in the production department and not as polished as they could be. You much prefer that, right? How about instead of having Lucifuge and How the Gods Kill and Danzig IV sound the way they do, how would have you liked it if Glenn would have taken all the material for those albums and went into a goddamn shed somewhere out in the fucking woods and just recorded them onto a cheap tape recorder or onto a computer? I just don't buy it. These albums, in my opinion, these later Danzig albums, I wish they had a richer, more textured and well-rounded production. I want them sounding really nice. Not so polished that you could fucking lick food off of them or anything like that. They don't have to be so sparkling that they sound, you know, like pop albums. I don't mean that. I just mean remember the days of albums like Danzig II and Danzig IV. Remember how well-rounded those albums sounded? Remember how they kicked your ass into the dirt? I would love that sound quality on these later Danzig albums. I think it'd be fucking awesome. You can call these things, you can call the balls and strikes and say when, you know, you think one of your favorite bands goes wrong with the release. It's not like a cardinal sin to fucking do that, okay? I also don't have time to talk about the 2 Black Aria recordings or the Live from the Black Hand Side live album, although I will say really quickly, if you get the Live on the Black Hand Side CD, just listen to CD 1. The second CD, oh my god, the sound quality, it just sounds like shit. Listen to the first CD. That's the side that has all of the great stuff. It has some really cool performances on it. And you know what, guys? I would be remiss if I didn't point out that I would love so much if at some point Glenn Danzig would get back together with Eerie Von, Chuck Biscuits, and John Christ. The reason it hasn't been done, there's no great, like, money in it. If Glenn got back together with John Christ and company, they wouldn't be able to go out and fill up Madison Square Garden like the Misfits do. Who knows, guys? Maybe one day we'll hear a recording by them reunited. I hope so.
Come on, Glenn, get up. We on a gator.
But there you go, guys. That's it in a nutshell. That is a deep dive into the full Danzig discography. He's really influenced me in the stuff that I've created over the years, and he's one of my favorite musicians of all time. You know, whether it be in the Misfits, Sam Hain, or Danzig. I just love the great music that he has brought to the world. Such a powerful performer and just a one-of-a-kind personality. I thank you for watching this retrospective here on the Downfall Network, and if you're interested in seeing any more of my videos on Mountaintop 9, don't forget to type in Mountaintop 9 in the search bar and look up my channel. I do lots of reviews on all kinds of sick and twisted horror flicks and good metal reviews, so check that out as well. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll be seeing you next time.
What would you like to be remembered for after you're gone?
I don't care.
If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to Mountaintop 9 for more metal and horror related content.